and lift the other one up. And come on and bless his name because he's worthy to be praised. How many know that even with what we're dealing with, he's still a way maker? He's still a promise keeper. He's a light in the darkness. Come on, look to the hills and say, Lord, that's who you are. Hallelujah. We'll bless your name. You're moving right here in the midst. We bless your name, Lord. In this house. We worship you, Lord. We worship you. Oh. Come now, worship you. I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. And I worship you. I worship you. Come on, can you say that one more time? You are here, turning lives around. Yes. And we worship you. And we worship you. One more time. You are here, turning lives around. And I worship you. Hallelujah. I worship you. Come on, everybody in the house. Come on, can you say that with me? Say, Waymaker, miracle worker, promise, say the light of the dark, my God, that is who you are. That's it right there. Say it again. Yeah. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise, keep the light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Take two verses. You are here, turning lives around. And I worship you. And I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. And I worship you. Lord, I worship you. You are here. Come on, you are here. Turning lives around. Turning lives around. Say, I worship you. Yes, I do, Lord. I worship. Come on, you are here, mending every. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you. Come on, say, I worship you. I worship. Everybody in the house, come on, you can sing it with us. Come on, everybody say, Waymaker, miracle worker, promise, keep the light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Come on and sing it loud, give me it. Say, Waymaker, miracle worker, promise, keep the light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Come on, listen. You are here, mending every heart. And I worship you. And I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. And I worship you. I worship you. Somebody say, Waymaker, miracle worker, promise, keep the light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Say, Waymaker, say, Waymaker, miracle worker, promise, keep
Good afternoon, Christ Community family. So good to have you, Christ Community Nation, all of our visitors and all of our friends. Go ahead, get in the comment section. Let me know you're here. I'll see it whether you're on YouTube, you're on my personal page, or you are on the church page. We want to welcome you. Good afternoon to you, Sister Lois Cole. Good to have you. Vet, good to see you again. I saw you in Sunday school. Good to have you. We got Miss Denise Horton on. Also good to have you. Good afternoon to you and Miss Rashonda Crockett. Good to have you as well. Let me say God bless you to everybody joining us. It is such a blessing to be with all of you, my Father's children, no matter where you are. I know we have people from literally everywhere that peek in and jump in and jump out. Just want to let you know that it's good to see you. We've got Debbie on. Debbie, good to see you back. Steve, we got you, man. Good to see you, my brother. You all get in the comment section. Nia, what's up with you? Good to see you. You all get in the comment section. Let me know you're here. Leash, good afternoon to you. Miss Chris Jordan, good to see you. And Sister Mary Martin, good to see you as well. So you all come on in the comment section and let me know you're here. Also, do me a favor and welcome somebody into the house of the Lord. I need you to do me a favor. Let somebody know that they can't be late today, because if you are late getting in, it is you are going to miss it, because we won't do as much singing as we normally do. We're going to get into the Word of God shortly. Let me say, hey, Tiffany, how you doing? My cousin Joy is on. How you doing? Good to have you on. And Bernadette, good afternoon to you. So you all let me know that you are here and that you all are ready to worship God and ready to hear a word from the Lord. Because again, I'm not going to tarry today. I'll certainly have a word that I want to share with you. Aunt Vanessa, good to see you. Love you too. God has been good to us. We just are so grateful for his mercy. Let me say this by way of announcement. I want to let you know that on Sunday, July 5th, this coming Sunday, next Sunday, we will worship outside. So we want you to come and worship with us. We are looking forward just to seeing so many of you. We haven't seen you in a while. Some of you missed the last one. I wanted to do one in June. We didn't get a chance to make it happen, but we are going to do one first Sunday in July, which is next Sunday. So come on down. We are going to connect at around 12 o'clock. We want you to come in your cars. Some of you asked me, can I bring my lawn chair? That is perfectly fine. We are going to socially distance. So even though Erie is in the green, we're still going to distance. We're still going to have masks on and all of that. But we are going to come together and worship, and we're going to stream as well. So we will stream. So if you all want to come and just worship God, come sit in your cars in the parking lot, as well as you want to sit in the grass area, you will be able to do that on Sunday, July 5th. I'm looking forward to seeing many of you that I did not get a chance to see last time I was in the city and last time that we worshiped. All right. So look, we are getting ready to go to God in the Word of God. And this is what I need you to do. I need you to remember that we are talking from this idea that we are destined for greatness. And before we get to the word, I just want you to comment that in the comment section. Just say, I am destined for greatness. Just say, I am destined for greatness. I want you to speak that. I want you to claim that. I want you to believe that you are indeed destined for greatness. And that is our subject. We're going to be unpacking greatness throughout the summer. We're going to be looking at the life of Moses in order to make that happen. So I need you to just agree with me on that. And I want you to know that for yourself, that you are indeed destined for greatness. I want to just share this please, ma'am, please, sir, I actually would consider to be a blessing to the Christ Community Church. You can give at ccerie.online.church. You can give via text. You can give via Cash App, or you can mail in. But ask that you would support the ministry as we seek to move forward in the summer months. And so you see that on the screen. Put it up again. You can screenshot that if you want to be a blessing to the Christ Community Church. I would ask that you would indeed do that. It is so good to see you. I see you all. I see you. Let me make sure that I got everybody. Sister Horton says, I am destined for greatness. Yes, you are. Angelia says, good afternoon, Pastor. And I love Angelia's name here. It says authoress. She is an author, and we are so proud of you, Angelia. We celebrate you on your new book, and we're going to need some information so that we can get that out to everybody. Rashonda says, I am destined for greatness. Our brother Dale Barney is on. He says, good afternoon. Good afternoon to you, sir. Debbie says, I am destined for greatness. Go ahead and you all put that in the comment section. And Vanessa, I'm destined for greatness. I see you, Leash. Yes, you are. We are claiming that together, that we are indeed destined for greatness. And while you do that, if you have a Bible, I want you to go to the book of Exodus. Exodus chapter 2. My man, what's up with you, my brother? Good to see you all the way from Maryland. I'm destined for greatness. I see you all. I want to go to Exodus 2, and I want to read just a few verses from Exodus 2. And I want to start my reading at verse 11. Let somebody know, if you don't see somebody on and they think that they're going to jump in at 12:30 and catch the word, let them know I'm going right now. I ain't waiting. We getting it in right now. Tammy, I see you. I'm destined for greatness. Brother Steve says I'm destined for greatness. We see this in Exodus 2. It says, years later, after Moses had grown up, he went out to his own people and observed their forced labor. He saw an Egyptian striking a Hebrew, one of his people. Looking all around and seeing no one, he struck the Egyptian dead and hid him in the sand. The next day, he went out. When he was out, he saw two Hebrews fighting. He asked the one in the wrong, why are you attacking your neighbor? Who made you a commander and judge over us? The man replied, are you planning to kill me the way I watched you kill that Egyptian on here yesterday? Then Moses became afraid and thought, what I did is certainly known. When Pharaoh heard about this, he tried to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in the land of Midian and sat down by a well. I'm going to stop my reading right there. We're talking about destined for greatness, and you said I am destined for greatness. But if I can give this a subtitle, I would just say, don't waste your failures. Don't waste your failures. And I want to give you 7 lessons that every person that's going to be great needs to learn. And we're going to take these right from the life of Moses. So here it is. Don't waste your failure. Don't waste your failure. Now, church, let me say this to all of my family, all of my friends, all of you connected right now. I need you to know this, that all of us come up short at some point in our lives. There's not a person on this live right now, on our YouTube channel, then not a person on my page, church page. None of you are perfect. Matter of fact, let me make it personal. Daryl is not perfect. There is nothing perfect about me. My relationships aren't perfect. My money isn't perfect. It ain't where I want it to be. Living situation isn't perfect. And you all can say the same thing. We are not perfect. Even if you are in your dream home right now, let's talk about your house. Even if you are in your dream home, and it is your dream home, live in it a little while And sooner or later, you're going to have to fix a sink. You're going to have to replace a water heater. You're going to have to mow the lawn, once a week, or you're going to have somebody do it, or maybe once every other week. I don't know what your schedule is, but none of us are perfect. None of us have perfect lives. None of us make perfect decisions. All of us have some sense of failure. And one of the things that I love about the Bible is that the greatest men and women are not pictured as perfect people who never made mistakes. Moses, we're getting ready to get into some of his mistakes and failures. You read about David, a man after God's own heart, a great king. He was also a man of many failures. Noah was a man of failures. Paul was a man of many failures. Peter was a man of many failures. If we are in Christ, if we are alive, all of us have failed at some point, at some time in this thing called life. Join the club. Matter of fact, if I would apply some scripture to this, Romans 3:23 says this way: all have sinned and have fallen short of the glory of God. Now, I'm not going to have you comment this, but I want you to know this. All of us have come up short. All of us have come up short on some level at some point in our life. It is just the nature of our humanity. But as we come up short, it is important that our failures don't become the things that define us, but our failures become the things that we learn from. You've heard me say this before. I need to say it again. When it comes to your failures, you learn from them. You don't live in them. See, the problem with many of us is that when we look back and we see all the areas that we've come up short in our life, that we have a tendency to try to live in the guilt, live in the shame, to repeatedly remind ourselves of how far we've fallen and how low we seem to be. But I'm here to tell you that while failure is a part of life, while failure is something that we all experience, failure must be learned from. Failure cannot be lived in. And I want to really make that the foundation of today's message, because I don't want you to walk away from this message just saying, I'm a failure, I'm a failure, I'm a failure. All of us have failed. The question becomes, what are we going to do about it? And when we ask ourselves, what are we going to do about it? It is my assignment to push you to learn from it and to be better as a result of your failure, to be better as a result of your past wrongs. Here we are in the book of Exodus. I told you we're studying the life of Moses. And Moses, at this point, in verse 11 of chapter 2, we see that Moses had grown up. Moses had two lives. He had learned about his Hebrew heritage from his mom. He spent some time growing up in mom's house. But then not only did he spend some time growing up in mom's house, he grew up under Pharaoh's daughter. Josephus, that ancient historian, he implies, and maybe this is just conjecture on his part, but he implies that that Moses was being reared to take the throne. We don't know that for sure, but we do know that Moses was at least getting the best Egyptian education. He had two backgrounds. He had his Hebrew heritage, but he also had his Egyptian upbringing, and he went to the best schools. He was afforded the best opportunities. Well, one day while Moses was out, he had grown up at this point. He had looked around and he saw an Egyptian working his people hard, because remember, his people are enslaved. They are oppressed. They are in slavery and they are being worked hard. Moses sees this, and Moses looks at the Egyptian. He looks around, makes sure nobody is looking, and Moses kills that Egyptian that was doing his Hebrew brother wrong. Moses knows that if he gets caught, there's going to be some trouble to pay. So what does he do? Moses hides the body so that nobody can find it. Moses intervenes into a situation, and let's be clear, maybe it was good for him to intervene. The problem came when he murdered the man. And as I look at this scenario, I want to extract out of that failure in Moses' life, because that failure had consequences. That failure caused Moses to be a fugitive. He was on the run because word got around he had killed somebody. He's on the run. He goes to Midian because Pharaoh is ready to kill him. And I need to be clear that not only do we learn from, not live in our failures, but we got to understand that our failures do come with consequences. That when we make mistakes, that when we make wrong decisions, that there are things that we've got to deal with as a result of it. But God's people, great people, they deal with those consequences and they learn the lessons that are necessary. Church, I want to remind you, my word to you today is don't waste your failures. There's 7 lessons that we can learn from Moses' failures that we can learn from ours. You ready for lesson number 1? Lesson number 1, and I got to go through these quick because I don't normally have 7 points. I normally have 3, but I want to cover 7 today. Number 1 is the lesson of destiny. Destiny. If you are taking notes, it is the destiny lesson. That God does have a plan for your life. And the plan of God for Moses' life was for Moses to intervene and was for Moses to bring about deliverance to the people of God. The problem wasn't what Moses wanted to do. It was in the how he did it and the when he tried to do it. This destiny issue, the lesson of destiny that we learned from Moses' life, is that I cannot have God's will my way. I need you to understand that. I need you to make sure you write that lesson down as it will relate to destiny, that you cannot have God's will your way. I can't have God's will my way. That the moment in which I try to place something carnal on top of something spiritual, I forfeit the intent of God for that thing in my life. I need you to understand that the destiny issue is that God has some place that he's taking me, but I can detour, I can reroute based on my desire to have God's blessing my way. The destiny lesson teaches us that I cannot have God's will my way. This isn't Burger King. If I'm going to have God's will, I've got to have God's will God's way. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That it was God's intent for Moses to deliver the people, but it was not God's intent for Moses to kill that Egyptian on that day in order for God's will to be done. God will not have you break his law, break his command in order to get ahead. So many of us are so used to trying to take shortcuts in life, but I need to let you know that shortcuts trip you up in the long run. I can speak to that personally and just by driving. I remember I was in a rush and I was and I didn't like the route that I was going, that the GPS had me going. And so I said, I know another way that's going to be shorter. And so I went the way that I knew and I ignored the GPS. Well, what I did not know is that the GPS also knew that way, but the GPS knew that that particular way was closed because of construction. When I tried to go the shortcut, I ended up running into a dead end. And that's the same way in life. When you major in shortcuts, you ultimately run into dead ends. We're so used to trying to hustle. We're so used to trying to get over and trying to get over to get ahead. But the truth of the matter is, eventually those shortcuts turn into dead ends. And I want to remind you, the first lesson of destiny is that I can't have God's will my way. That's in verse 11 and in verse 12. But then there's a second lesson that we learn as it would relate to Moses' failure. And that is the timing lesson. Timing is your second lesson. It is your second thing, because all God's people, not just God's people, this is true in business. If you are in business, this is true in every area of your life. This is true in your relationships. The when is just as important as the what. I'll say it again. The when is just as important as the what. What is the what here? The what is that Moses would bring deliverance to the people of God. The problem is that Moses was not ready for that assignment. His timing was off. And I've said this before, and I'll sound like a broken clock, but I need to say it again. A blessing out of time, a blessing out of season, ends up having the effect of a curse. So that if you try to operate in the blessing of God outside of the timing of God, you will find either a premature blessing that isn't ready yet, or you'll find a premature you that isn't ready to hold it. Either way, you have derailed and you have detoured God's plan, not because you missed the right thing to do, but you tried to do the right thing at the wrong time. Timing is essential. Your greatness depends upon you understanding the value of timing, not just knowing the what I need to do, but the when I need to do it. So the first lesson is the lesson of destiny. I can't have God's will my way. The second lesson is the lesson of timing, that the when is just as important as the what. But then the third lesson is the lesson of deception. Moses knew he was wrong. And because he knew he was wrong, he looked around after he killed that brother and he hit him in the sand. He said, then he went on about his business. He didn't think nobody saw him. He didn't think that anybody saw him. Let me just read this verse, verse 12. Looking around and seeing no one, he struck the Egyptian dead and hid him in the sand. The next day he went out and saw two Hebrews fighting. He asked the one who was in the wrong, "Why are you attacking your neighbor?" The brothers clapped back. He said, "Who made you a commander and judge over us? Are you planning to kill me the way you killed the Egyptian?" It was already around town that Moses had murdered that Egyptian. Not even barely a day had passed and people already knew what was going on. And so Moses had to find out. The deception lesson is this, that hiding wrong does not erase wrong. Hiding wrong does not erase wrong. I like the way Chuck Swindoll places it. And, Chuck talks about this in his book on Moses. And Chuck says hiding wrong does not erase wrong. All it does is it just delays the discovery. So you can think that you got away with something all you want to. Eventually, it's going to be exposed. My mom used to say this to me when we were young. I told you this before. She's always say, whatever you do in the dark is going to come out in the light. Eventually, light is going to be shed on the thing that you tried to hide. And earlier today, we were talking about family secrets. And we were talking about how some family secrets impact families and how families are doing and the health of families. Because somebody tried to put some sand over something and they thought by putting sand over it, by hiding it, that was going to erase the problem or eliminate the problem. The issue becomes this simple truth that you can hide a body under sand for a little while, but eventually something's going to happen. The wind's going to blow and some of that sand's going to be moved and somebody's going to see a hand. The wind's going to blow and people are going to smell the decay. Or when you looked around and thought nobody was there, all the while it was somebody there looking all the time. Great people understand that the way to deal with their problems is not to always try to hide their problems. Now, understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that everybody needs to be in your business. Everybody needs to know what's going on. What I am saying is that you need to get real about the fact that there are some skeletons in your closet that you've been hiding, and you think just by not dealing with them that they aren't an issue in your life, when really they are the silent captain on your ship. See, those things that you have not dealt with, when you don't deal with them, they eventually begin to deal with you. And that is the danger. That is the danger. That is the problem of trying to hide stuff, that eventually it comes out. I think it was an old school line. People used to say it. I might be getting it wrong, but whatever doesn't come out in the wash or come out in the rinse, something like that. That eventually, whatever you were hiding is going to come out. And Moses realized, he found this out in his failure. He found out that he tried to hide it, but what he tried to hide ended up being exposed. And I want you to know that there's some stuff that you've got to deal with at the hidden level of life, the hidden realities of life. You've got to deal with them. You can't hide them any longer, because eventually they are going to expose themselves. You try to hide it long enough, understand, you are just prolonging the inevitable. And when you prolong it, typically what happens is it just intensifies the longer that you wait to deal with it. So it is the deception lesson, number 3. But then the 4th lesson is the lesson of elevation. It is the lesson of elevation. See, Moses tried to step into the role of deliverer. That role was for him, but it wasn't for him right now. The lesson of elevation teaches us that the promotions of God are appointed, they are not assumed. They are appointed, they are not assumed. So when God has something for you, God will get you there. You can't get yourself there. You can't try to force it. You can't try to force yourself to fit. You are not ready yet, or it may not be ready for you. And so elevation says, God, I want to go through the process so that I am ready for what it is that you have for me. I was listening to a gardener. He was dealing with his crops, and somebody was looking, and they were saying, well, why aren't you picking those over there? Those are ripe. And he said, with this particular fruit, it's not just about it being ripe. I need it to be ready. And so even when it's ripe, I need it to sit for a little while, because there's some more that has to go on behind the scenes in order for it to be ready. It's ripe, but it's not ready. So let me paint the picture even clearer. There are some people that have adult bodies, but they still got adolescent minds. There are some people that are physically ready for the assignment, but they aren't spiritually or mentally ready for the assignment. One of the dangers of trying to walk into something when you aren't ready is that that thing will crush you. People who try to walk into ministry, people who try to walk into business, when they haven't properly prepared themselves, the pressure of that will weigh down on them because they weren't ready for it. So elevation teaches me that I gotta be appointed by God for this. I can't just assume this for myself. So it's the elevation question. And whenever I talk about elevation, can I just point this out? That many times elevation requires separation. And maybe some of us cannot get to where God has for us because we aren't willing to separate from the people or from the things that we need distance from in order for us to be at our best. Elevation always requires separation. And so I would encourage you, if you want more out of life, you want more out of your job, you want more out of your business, or you want more out of your relationship, maybe if you're going to elevate, the question is, what do I need to separate myself from in order to get on that next level? You know, there's a reason why I personally don't spend a lot of time acknowledging haters and critics. I know they're there. I know people got stuff to say, but personally, I don't have time to always come down to where you are, because there's this thing in the back of my mind that tells me that my haters, they feed off of attention. And so what I've got to do is sometimes I've got to just make sure there's distance in between them. I'm going to let them do whatever talking they want to do about me, because I'm over here trying to get to the place that God has for me. I don't have time to come down where you are. It's like Nehemiah. Nehemiah said, why should I come down off the wall and talk to you, Sanballat, Geshem, and Tobiah? I'm up here working. I don't got time to be having conversation with you down there. The lesson of elevation, number 4. We already over halfway through. Number 5 is service. Service. Moses' failure taught him the lesson of service. Because what ends up happening? There are consequences to his decision to kill that Egyptian. That's a failure. That's a mark. That's a stain on Moses' life. Moses now has Pharaoh wanting to kill him. So Moses becomes a fugitive. He runs from Egypt and he runs right into Midian. And when he runs into Midian, let me just read this verse just in case you need it. Around verse 17, it says, let me start at verse 16. It says, now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters. They came to draw water and filled the troughs to water of their father's flock. Then some shepherds arrived and drove them away. But Moses came to their rescue and watered their flock. When they returned to their father, he asked, why have you come back so quickly? They answered, an Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. He even drew water for us and watered the flock. Moses on the run is now serving. See, all of us have to understand that when life goes crazy, it is not reason for us to shut everything down. That when life is crazy, we still need to serve. We're still required to serve in some capacity. Think about Joseph, for instance. Joseph was betrayed and he was sold into slavery by his brothers. But he serves at Potiphar's house. He serves in prison. He serves the 2 officials from Pharaoh's house. Joseph serves. Here, Moses is on the run, a fugitive, and he serves. He serves these women who are in trouble. Not only does he drive the shepherds, giving them trouble away, but then Moses goes the extra mile. He serves them by watering their flock. I want you to know that service has a way of putting you in position for success. Service will position you. I was talking about a year or two ago to a young person who was telling me about the job that they got. It was a great job. And as we were talking about the job that they got, that there were some people with more credentials that did not get the job and they got it. And we're talking, how did you get the job? And they said, well, I was serving at an event for Habitat for Humanity. And I was just making conversation and being nice to the person next to me. And while serving, I come to find out that that person is the CEO of the company and asked me, as the result of our conversations while serving, asked me if I needed a job. And because I was serving with the CEO, it positioned me for a job that I was not qualified for, but they ended up training me for. And I only got it, Pastor Cook, because I was found serving. Serving will position you for success. Moses did not realize that Midian was where he needed to be, that Midian was going to be a ground of preparation for him in order to lead God's people. It is amazing that some of God's greatest leaders are shepherds. David was a shepherd. Joseph had he had experience as a shepherd, and Moses would go to Midian and he would learn how to work with the flock, because God loved shepherds for some reason. Even when Jesus comes into the world, shepherds are an integral part of the story, because there's something that a shepherd learns about sheep that God values, and those lessons become transferable for how God wants his leaders to lead people. In service, Moses is elevated. Moses is positioned for where God was taking him. And so I want to encourage somebody. I know the pain is hard from whatever you went through. I know failure has a way of robbing you of joy, but God told me to tell you that sometimes the journey to peace, the journey to strength, is service. Service will position you for greatness. There's two more and I'm done. The sixth lesson is the lesson of obscurity. The lesson of obscurity. See, everybody wants to shine today. Everybody wants to be out in front. But you know, on a basketball team, I said this before, but I'll say it again. We just saw the documentary of The Last Dance. There was only room enough on the Chicago Bulls dynasty for one Michael Jordan. There was only room for one Scottie Pippen. There needed around those stars to be some role players, in which you needed a Charles Oakley. You needed a Horace Grant. You needed a Steve Kerr. You needed a John Paxson. You needed a Bill Cartwright. You needed a Luke Longley, a Tony Kukoc. You needed some guys who would be in the background that wouldn't get all the shine that a Jordan got, but they were still necessary for the success of the team. And God will teach us the lesson of obscurity. That it's not all about the shine. It's not all about all eyes being on you. And sometimes you have to spend significant time being looked past, being looked over before God says you're ready for what he has for you. I love what Dwight Moody, he puts Moses' life into context for us. He says that Moses spent his first 40 years thinking he was somebody. He spent his second 40 years learning he was a nobody. But then he spent his third 40 years discovering what God can do with a nobody. Did you hear that? Moses spent his first 40 years thinking he was somebody, the next 40 learning he was nobody, and then the last 40, he discovered what God can do with a nobody. See, what we've got to learn, and what obscurity teaches us, is that we are not as strong as we think we are. We're not as smart as we think we are. We're not as wise as we think we are. We need somebody greater than us to help us navigate this thing called life. I will end this conversation on obscurity here. I have a different mindset at 39 than I had at 17, 18, at 19. I remember thinking I was invincible for some crazy reason, thinking that harm couldn't come to me. And I think about, I was just talking to Jared. We were just talking the other day, and matter of fact, I had shared this story with you, and I was saying to this day that Jared will, if you dare him to, he will run, he'll do a front flip, and he'll go into a back flip. I think Jared's 38, I'm 39. Matter of fact, Jared just turned 38 June 18th. At 38, he'll still do a backflip. At 16, 17, 18, 19, I would still do a backflip for you. But at 39, there's something in my head that I don't even try it. I'm not even interested in seeing if I can still do it. There's nothing in me that is curious about that. I won't even try it at this point, this stage of my life. because I learned that I'm not as invincible as I thought I was back then. I sprained my ankle enough times to learn that I was not invincible. I've got a big bruise right here and a bruise right here. Got a bruise on my arm that reminds me that I am not invincible. I've had a lot of things to remind me that I'm not invincible and I'm not as strong as I thought I was. I had to learn those lessons through bumps and bruises and the hard way. And Moses had to learn the lesson of obscurity by going to a place called Midian. Here's the last one, and I'm done. Trust. Trust is the last lesson. If you want to be great, you got to learn the lesson of trust. I can't believe we've gone through 7 of these. God knows, and I want you to trust this about God. God knows how to get you where he wants you. God doesn't cause everything in your life, but God can use each event in your life to get you to where he wants you to be. And we know that all things work together for the good of them who love God, who are the called according to his purpose. We know that God is behind the scenes and God knows how to orchestrate things and God knows how to maneuver. God knows how to even take the self-inflicted mess I've made for myself. God knows how to pull that into his plan so that even the stuff it wasn't designed for me to go through, but I went through anyway. God says, I will use this for my glory and for your good. God talking. And we've got to trust. We've got to trust God. We've got to learn this lesson to trust. I can't tell you how many times in life and in ministry that I just looked around and I'm like, man, I just don't think I can figure this one out. I don't think that I can navigate this. I don't think I'll ever get beyond this. I don't think I'll ever recover from this. Like that prophet, I was just talking to my boy Jonathan Baker the other day, and we were talking about that prophet that sat up under the juniper tree, and he was just ready to die because of how bad he convinced himself that life was. And sometimes God has to remind us that no matter how bad it seems to you, that God sees life from a different perspective. And so my trust in God isn't based on what I see from my perspective of time, but it is on God's perspective, because God doesn't just see from a time lens. God sees through eternity. So the past, the present, and the future mean something different to me than they mean to God. And I can trust that God knows how to get me where he wants me to be. It's like that GPS. I was talking about the GPS earlier. One of the things that I love about them is that when I'm driving, and there are times in which the GPS is telling me to turn right, but I turn right too early. The GPS wanted me to turn right 700 feet from where I am, but I turned too early. But when I turn early and I'm going in the wrong direction, I've learned to trust my GPS to reroute. And it reroutes so that I know that I can, even if I turn the wrong way, it's going to reroute another course for me. And that's what I love about God, is that God majors in rerouting because we major in failure. But I can trust God that God will reroute so that as I'm going the wrong way, he'll tell me, turn this way. And God will use even my missteps and my wrong turns as a part of my journey. You want to be great. I believe there's greatness in you. I believe that there's greatness for you, but you must trust there's a God bigger than you who knows what you need, who knows when you need it, knows how to get you from the pasture to the palace. A God that knows how to get you from Egypt to Midian and back to Egypt. I don't know about you, but I'm glad that the God that I serve is a God who deserves my trust, who has earned my trust. I've tried him and I found out that he is able, he's more than capable to get me where he wants me to be. So church, I'm done when I tell you, don't waste your failure. And through Moses' failure, we learned the lesson of destiny. We learned the lesson of timing, the lesson of deception, the lesson of elevation, the lesson of service, the lesson of obscurity. And we learned the lesson of trust. 7 essential lessons for every great person that is going to walk this life. And I don't got to be perfect to be great. Perfection is something I'm striving for. If I'm going to use the language of Paul, I have not apprehended, but I'm reaching forward to those things that are in front of me. All right. I hope this blessed you. Selena has done an excellent job of just capturing some of the notes. So I encourage you to look in the comment section. If you missed anything, you will see the notes from the message so that you can kind of meditate on it and you can apply it. I don't normally give you 7 ideas in a message, but I just felt that I needed to give you all 7 of these today. Let me pray for you. Father, I love you and I thank you for this day, for this opportunity to worship you and to declare your word. And now I pray that you would continue to bless us as we seek to move forward, that we seek to progress, to elevate ourselves, to move beyond where we've been to where you want us to be. Some of us are navigating serious consequences connected to failure. Some of us are just navigating not failure of anybody or not failure of our own, but failure of somebody. And so we are paying for the mistakes of somebody else. And so we're struggling with that. But whatever the struggle may be, Father, you are able, more than capable, to meet us at the point of our need. So bless your people right now is my prayer in the name of Jesus. Bless us, keep us, mold us, shape us, cause us to become more like your son, Jesus Christ. I cover all those who are grieving, all those who are hurting, all those who need your peace and need your strength. I cover them. All those who stand in the need of healing, I cover them in the name of Jesus. Heal their body. Some need healing in their mind. Some need healing in their emotional life. Heal them. Others, Lord, are struggling in the area of their relationships and they need you to intervene. Marriages, I pray for those. Other romantic relationships, I pray for them. Sibling relationships, mother and daughter, mother and son, father, daughter, father, son. I pray for those relationships. I pray for families who need restoration. There's fracture for whatever the reason, but Father, you know how to fix it. Help them to travel the road of forgiveness and not resentment. I pray for your people. I cover them. We want to be great. Help us not to waste our failures. Also not to live in them, but to learn from them. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen and amen. Well, church, I just wanted to kind of just give you just some food for thought, something to kind of to meditate on today, and something to process. So take some time and just kind of just go through and if you need some of my notes, I don't mind sharing some of my notes. Just shoot me out a message. But again, I thank Selena. She's done an awesome job keeping us covered. Remember, July 5th, we're going to worship together outside. So I want you to be ready for that. All right. We are out of here. I love you all. Appreciate you. Again, I ask that you would consider this being a blessing to the Christ Community Church. Please consider that. You can give by Cash App. You can give via text. You can give on the site, or you can mail something in. But we encourage you to be a blessing to the church as we, like all of you, continue to navigate this season. Last thing, I know Erie is green, but please be cautious as you move. I know everybody's arguing about masks. Don't even get into those arguments. Wear your mask. Wash your hands. Do all the things that you need to do so that we aren't spreading this thing. Remember, this virus isn't just spread by people who feel sick. People who don't have symptoms are carriers of this. So please, ma'am, please, sir, I know we're green, but be cautious. Don't be out there, acting crazy. I know everybody jumped to get to the mall and all of that. I'm not telling you not to go out. What I am telling you is to be cautious. Practice social distancing. Wear your mask. Wash your hands. And do all you can do, not just to protect yourself. This isn't just about protecting ourselves. This is also about protecting others, and I would encourage you to do that. Look, I love you. I thank God for you, and we will see you on Tuesday. All right? Blessing and favor in your life is always my prayer for you. Bye-bye now.